I just remember I just cried. It was time for me to leave.
Jack Charlton died too soon. In July 2020, the world lost a World Cup hero, but the truth is, we had been losing him for years. Dementia had stolen his memories, and lymphoma would take his life. His daughter and family would later reveal shocking details about how the man who conquered the world forgot he ever did. This is the story of a working-class boy from the coal mines who became a footballing legend, only to have it all erased by the very sport that made him famous. It is a story of triumph, sacrifice, and a tragedy that would change football forever. Jack Charlton was born in 1935 in Ashington, a small mining town in Northumberland. It was called the largest mining village in the world. Coal was everything there. The town existed to dig it out of the ground, and the people who lived there knew nothing else. Life was hard, and space was scarce. Jack grew up at 114 Beatrice Street in a tiny terraced house. He shared one bed with his 3 brothers, 4 boys, top to tail, every single night. Bobby, Gordon, and Tommy slept alongside him. They had no choice. Money was tight and the house was small. Their father worked down the pit, disappearing into the earth each day to bring home a wage. But Jack had something the others did not. His mother, Sissy, came from a footballing family. Her cousin was Jackie Milburn, a legend at Newcastle United. Her brothers all played professionally. In Ashington, football was not just a game, it was the only way out. Sissy played with her sons in the back lanes. She coached them, taught them how to kick, how to move, how to win. She believed in them, and she knew that if they were good enough, they could escape the mines. But escape was not guaranteed. At 15 years old, Jack went down the pit. He joined his father at the coalface. Just like every other boy in Ashington, it was expected. It was the way things were done. Jack hated it. He described the darkness as something you could feel. It pressed down on you. The air was thick. The spaces were so tight you could not stand up. He was claustrophobic. He was terrified. He knew this life would kill him one way or another. He worked there for only a short time, but it left a mark. Years later, he told his children he felt like he had cheated death by leaving the mines. He could have been trapped there forever, like so many others. But football gave him a way out. Leeds United offered him a trial. His uncle, Jim Milburn, played there, but Jack almost turned it down. He had also applied to join the police force. It was a safe job, a respectable job, but the trial and the police interview were on the same day. He had to choose. He chose football. He travelled to Elland Road, raw and rough, desperate to prove himself. He succeeded. He joined the ground staff, and his life changed forever. He had escaped the pit, but he had no idea what price he would pay for that escape. Jack Charlton became one of the greatest defenders England has ever seen. He was tall, over 6 feet, and they called him the Giraffe. He was strong, fearless, and utterly committed. He played for Leeds United for 21 years, making over 770 appearances. It is still a club record. He was the backbone of the team under Don Revie. They called Leeds Dirty Leeds because of how physical they were. Jack was at the centre of it all. His job was simple: stop the opposition, win the ball, clear the danger, and he did it, game after game, season after season. But the real glory came in 1966. Jack and his brother Bobby were both selected for the England squad at the World Cup. They won it. On July 30th, 1966, England beat West Germany at Wembley. Jack Charlton lifted the trophy. It was the greatest moment of his life, but that moment came at a cost. The footballs Jack headed during his career were not like the ones used today. They were made of leather. When it rained, the leather soaked up water like a sponge. A dry ball weighed around 14 ounces. A wet one could weigh 25% more. Imagine heading a ball like that. It came at you fast, heavy, and hard. It was like being punched in the head over and over again. And Jack did it thousands of times. Every match, every training session for over 2 decades. Scientists now know what that does to the brain. A study called Field, led by Dr. Willie Stewart at the University of Glasgow, looked at former professional footballers. The results were devastating. Footballers are 3.5 times more likely to die of brain disease than the general population. Outfield players are at even higher risk. Defenders, like Jack, are 5 times more likely. Jack Charlton was in the highest risk category possible. He played for 21 years. He headed the ball more than almost anyone, and the 1966 World Cup squad, the team that brought glory to England, paid a terrible price. Ray Wilson developed Alzheimer's. Martin Peters was diagnosed with dementia. Nobby Stiles had dementia and prostate cancer. Bobby Charlton was diagnosed with dementia just months after Jack died. Nearly half of the 1966 squad developed brain disease. days. They won the World Cup, but they lost their minds. Jack Charlton was one of them, and his decline was heartbreaking. The first signs came slowly. Jack started to forget things, small things at first, then bigger things. His family noticed, but they tried to carry on. They thought it was just old age, but it was not. It was dementia, creeping in like a fog, and it took everything. In 2020, a documentary called Finding Jack Charlton was released. It was meant to celebrate his time as manager of Ireland, the years when he became a national hero. But the film became something else. It became a portrait of a man disappearing. The filmmakers showed Jack footage of the 1966 World Cup final. He watched himself, young and strong, winning the greatest prize in football, but he did not remember it. He stared at the screen with a blank expression. The recognition flickered, then faded. They showed him his winner's medal. Millions of people would give anything to hold that medal, but Jack looked at it like it was a stranger's possession. He said, "Good gracious me." That was all. No pride, no joy, just polite confusion. He had forgotten the World Cup. The moment that defined his life, the memory that millions of fans still cherished, was gone, erased. He could not access it anymore. The neural pathways that held that memory had been destroyed. The documentary also showed his time with Ireland. From 1986 to 1996, Jack managed the Republic of Ireland national team. He was an Englishman, a World Cup winner, and he transformed Irish football. He took them to the quarter-finals of the 1990 World Cup. He made them believe. He became a legend there, more loved in Ireland than in England. They called him Saint Jack. They gave him honorary Irish citizenship. They adored him. But in the documentary, when his wife Pat asked him if the Irish people loved him, he looked at her blankly. He said, "I have no idea." He did not remember Ireland. He did not remember the love, the songs, the celebrations. It was all gone. The nation that worshipped him could not reach him anymore. He was locked inside his own fading mind. The cruelty of dementia is not just in what it takes. It is in how it isolates. Jack was surrounded by people who loved him, but he could not feel their love the way he once did. He could not remember why they loved him. He could not connect the past to the present. Every day was confusion. Every face was vaguely familiar but distant. His family watched him slip away piece by piece. They tried to hold on to the man he had been, but he was already gone. What remained was a shadow, a gentle presence, but not the Jack they knew. The vibrant, opinionated, larger-than-life man had been replaced by someone quieter, lost, uncertain. Pat Charlton, his wife, became his anchor. She cared for him with quiet strength. The documentary showed her guiding him through his confusion, helping him make sense of a world that no longer made sense to him. She focused on the present, on small moments of joy, because the past was lost. She was the one constant in his shrinking world. When everything else became unfamiliar, she was still there. She held his hand. She spoke gently. She loved him through the darkness, even when he could not fully remember why he loved her back. That kind of devotion is rarely seen. It is the hidden cost of dementia, borne not just by the patient, but by those who refuse to abandon them. In 2019, Jack was diagnosed with lymphoma, a cancer of the lymphatic system. He was 84 years old. His family faced an impossible decision. Should they treat it aggressively? Should they tell him? The dementia made the decision for them. Jack could not understand what was happening. His son John later said that when the doctor explained Jack was not going to get better, Jack just sat there. He looked at the doctor and nodded, as if to say, "Okay, fine." But it did not register. He did not know he was dying. The dementia shielded him from the terror of a terminal diagnosis, but it also robbed him of the chance to say goodbye. Jack Charlton died at home in Northumberland on July 10th, 2020. He was 85 years old. His death came during the COVID-19 pandemic, so his funeral was small, but the people refused to let him go quietly. Thousands lined the streets of Ashington as his cortege passed. They stood in silence, paying tribute to the boy from Beatrice Street who had become a giant. In Dublin, Irish fans gathered at the Walkinstown roundabout. They kept their distance because of the virus, but they sang the songs of Italia 90. They waved flags. They honoured the man who had given them so much. Jack Charlton's relationship with Ireland was one of the most beautiful parts of his story. He was not Irish by birth, but he became Irish in spirit. He managed players who had struggled, who had been written off, and he made them winners. One of those players was Paul McGrath. McGrath was one of the most talented footballers Ireland ever produced, but he was tormented by alcoholism and chronic knee injuries. Many managers would have given up on him. Jack Charlton did not. Jack became a father figure to McGrath. He protected him. He forgave him. He loved him. McGrath later said that his time with Jack defined his life, simply because it needed defining. The tragedy of the documentary is seeing that relationship reversed. McGrath visited Jack near the end. The player, once the chaotic one, was now clear and heartbroken. The manager, once the rock was drifting away. Jack did not recognise him. Paul McGrath had to watch the man who saved his life forget who he was. Jack Charlton also had a complicated relationship with his brother, Bobby. They shared a bed as children. They won the World Cup together, but they drifted apart. Jack had issues with Bobby's wife, Norma, and that caused a rift with their mother, Sissy. By 1996, they barely spoke. There were moments of reconciliation, a hug at an awards ceremony, a brief thaw, but they never fully repaired the relationship. And then time ran out. When Jack died in July 2020, Bobby was already slipping into his own dementia. 3 months later, Bobby's diagnosis was made public. He died in 2023. The two brothers, who had shared everything, ultimately shared the same tragic fate. They both died of the disease caused by the game they loved, and the silence between them was never broken. Jack Charlton's death changed football. He became more than a legend. He became a warning. Since his death, the rules have changed. Heading is now restricted in youth football training across England, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. The next generation of defenders will not suffer the way Jack did. His decline, captured so painfully in the documentary, forced the authorities to act. The field study gave the evidence. Jack Charlton gave the face. And now, children are safer because of it. His story sparked a movement. Families of former players began to speak out. They demanded accountability. They demanded change. And they got it. The Football Association could no longer ignore what was happening to the heroes of the past. Too many legends were dying. Too many families were suffering. Too many minds were being lost. Jack Charlton's final years were difficult, but they served a purpose. They showed the world what football really costs. Not just effort and sweat, but memory and identity. The price is paid decades later, when the cheering stops and the silence begins. When the trophies sit on shelves, gathering dust, while the men who won them sit in chairs, gathering confusion. Football is often called the beautiful game, and it is, but beauty can hide pain. Jack Charlton's life proves that. He was beautiful to watch. He was a joy to his fans, but the cost of that beauty was his mind. The game took him from the mines and gave him the world. Then it took the world away from him, piece by piece, memory by memory, until nothing was left but a kind old man who did not know why people loved him. That is the tragedy. That is the truth. That is the price. Jack Charlton's legacy is twofold. On one hand, there is the joy, the 1966 World Cup, the triumph at Leeds, the love of Ireland, the man in the flat cap, striding the touchline, bringing hope to millions. On the other hand, there is the cost, the memory loss, the confusion, the man staring at his own medal, unable to remember why it mattered. He gave everything to football, his youth in the mines, his body at Leeds, and finally his mind in Northumberland. The game gave him glory, but it took everything in return. Jack Charlton escaped the darkness of the coal mine, only to be claimed by the darkness of dementia. He spent his life seeking the open air, the freedom of the pitch, the horizon. But in the end, the world closed in around him, smaller and smaller, until there was nothing left but confusion. He forgot the World Cup so that we might remember the price of winning it. He sacrificed his future self for his present glory. And now, because of him, the next generation will be protected. Jack Charlton was a hero, a father figure, a legend, and a warning. His story is one of triumph and tragedy, of love and loss, of a man who gave everything and lost everything in return. He will never be forgotten, even if, at the end, he forgot himself.